Good evening and welcome to the August 3rd board workshop. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Here.
Mrs. Mooring?
Here.
Mrs. Coates?
Here.
Mrs. Horn?
Here.
Mr. Manley?
Here.
And if you'll all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any recommended changes to the agenda at all?
No changes.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Looks like we have a few items for action, mostly under human resources, which is to be expected at this time of year. I think there are 8 items under letter C. Is there a motion to approve item number C9, which is items C1 through C8? Excuse me. Thanks, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Manley. Any discussion about any of these items? Nope. Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We're going to go into the director reports and discussion section, and looks like we are going to begin with a report from our communication director, Mr. Starkey.
Good evening, President Pickle Antonio and members of the board. Happy to be here tonight. Tonight I wanted to dive into our website. You've heard me talk about it basically since probably my first day since I started, and I'm happy that we launched yesterday, and we have a finished product. I say finished loosely, because a website's never truly finished. So a finished website to launch, but we'll continue to work on it. So I wanted to start tonight. I couldn't talk about the website without thanking Judy in the communications department. Her countless hours have made this look as good as it does. And so her time on this website shouldn't be unnoticed. And then I also wanted to recognize basically everybody else in this room and others that aren't in preparing their content, emailing me all hours of the day, making sure that their pages are how they want them, and getting the content updated for our new site. So now that that's out of the way, I wanted to start with stats for the website, just to sort of paint a picture of what it looks like. I know we can see what it looks like, but sort of the behind the scenes. So we have 65 pages at the district level, approximately 25 pages per building, and so that's over 300 pages on the entire site. A lot of it's replicated content, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but we have over 300 pages on the site. Those pages are comprised of 538 photos, 648 documents, and we have 543 news posts that came from our old site dating back to December 1st, 2019. And so all that content has come over to the new site. According to our Google Analytics from yesterday, we had 1,924 page views, and that could be people clicking around because they don't know where the stuff is that they're looking for, and we're fully aware of that. But that's a pretty good number for a launch day, and obviously people are in the back to school mode now that we're into August, and so that makes sense that number looks like that. The other thing I wanted to highlight in this section was the feedback button. So if you've been to the site, you see the pop-up with just an explanation of, hey, we're still here, it's still us, it's just a new site, and a link to provide feedback, and that goes to our info@GJPS email. And that is also on the bottom of every page on the new site. So it's something that we created this spring but we're really ramping it up now. It's on every page on the website. And so in the last 24 hours, we've gotten 10 emails to that email, which is 10 more than we've had since it came out pretty much. I think we've had 1 or 2 in the last 3 or 4 months. And so some of them have been feedback on the website, and then other ones are just general information that they want for the district. And that's what we really want the email to serve, is a one-stop email monitored by Judy and I, to where we can help them get the information instead of them getting frustrated trying to find whatever they may be looking for, that they may need to talk to somebody on the phone anyway for the answer. So really happy to receive those 10 emails, especially the ones that have to do with feedback in terms of the website, because like I said, it's always growing and developing. So I wanted to take a quick cruise through the site, just to take a look at it together. So here it is. You'll see right off the top we have sort of 3 different navigations right as you land on the page. So the first is this top bar, Safe School Helpline and Translator on every page on the site, and the same with our schools drop-down menu here in the yellow box. Underneath that you'll see we have our sort of standard navigation that you see on just about any site, and this is pretty reflective of the old site, with some tweaks that we worked with PTO presidents and with our internal departments to sort of tweak to make this filing cabinet really make sense for families in the community. Underneath the hero image, you'll see these 6, I call them global icons. They're sort of the 6 most clicked links on our site, and so we used a lot of Google Analytics to track down what these should be, and these are customizable as well. So after the first couple weeks of school, we may not have many people looking for bus routes, and so we can change that out for whatever people may be looking for middle of September, or if we have a page on how we call snow days, maybe we'll bring that page up to one of our 6 links when it gets to that season. So you will also see these on each building site. They are the same across buildings, however, they go to that building's information. So it goes to, if you're on the East site, it'll go to East Calendar or East Directory. Underneath here on the district homepage, you'll see sort of, this is our big buckets. These are the things we want to highlight. Obviously, we'll put our strategic plan here when the time comes. Any of sort of big announcements that we're making as a district can go through these through this carousel. Just underneath that, you'll see our district calendar. Again, when we go to a building page, it'll be that building's events. Here you'll see the meeting that we're at is on our calendar. Underneath here, you'll see sort of our district bulletin board, and this is very resemblant of what we had on the old site. This is the wave tops of things happening in the district. And so scrolling back to the top, the meat of our content is under families and district info, which makes sense. Families, this is probably going to be the most used section for the next several months in terms of getting back to school, bus routes, forms, free and reduced lunch, those sorts of things. District info is exactly what it sounds like. It's, you need information about Gahanna Jefferson Public Schools. Here's a great place for you to start. If you can't find it here, send us an email. So I wanted to jump into an inside page quickly. I'll go to special programs just because I love the hero image on the page. So this illustrates sort of a department or section page, and they all are very similar. You'll see a contact information in a blue bar on the left-hand side, a blurb about what the department is or whatever page you're on, and then an accordion with additional information. And so they're similar by design, so that way you know no matter what page you're on, you're still in the district. You haven't left yet. And then I also wanted to highlight this section because we also have our sub-navigation here just underneath the hero image to get to additional interior pages that may fall in the navigation piece. So I'll quickly highlight a building. Looks very similar. Again, by design, because we want a cohesive experience for anybody who lands on any page in our district. We want them to know they're here, and they aren't on some other Gahanna Jefferson Public Schools site. So here at East, again, very similar. Our global icons go to East-specific links. This is the biggest change on the home page between the district and buildings, and this is sort of a find it fast section. My kid's sick at 5 a.m. Who do I call to report him absent? I'm in the car on the way to the store to get school supplies. What's the school supply list? And so here, this is again customizable for every building. We've been working with secretaries and administrators to get what information they want on here. You'll see school supply lists, A, B, C, D schedules on here, those sorts of things. And then the calendar is strictly East events. If you go to the East calendar page, you'll see a link to the district calendar, so we still haven't lost that touch point. And then our news items is the same as the district. And the reason for that is we know a lot of our parents only go to a school's page. They don't necessarily go to the district page. And so this allows us to still provide them the district wave tops without them having to toggle back and forth. The navigation on this page, again, very similar to the district site. But one thing to note on navigation is all of our elementaries and the preschool have the same navigation items. All of the middle schools have the same navigation items. And then from the preschool all the way to the high school, our navigation is very similar. And again, that's so that if people know where they are. They know if I have an elementary student and a middle school student, I have a very similar website experience no matter what building I'm on. Even if I go from a fifth grader to a sixth grader over the summer, it's not an entirely foreign experience. The only difference you have, for the most part, going to middle school is you now have athletics as an option. And so the last thing I wanted to highlight on this navigation for the school pages is the family section. As I mentioned at the district level, this is probably where most of our families spend their time to get their information. And the nice thing about this site is we have published once and posted everywhere. And so all of these pages, with the exception of the PTA page, is an exact replica of the district page, and it pulls directly from there. And so next year when handbooks are approved, we only update the page at the district level, and it's automatically reflected at every school site. So we never have to worry about if a secretary made a change at a building that was too early or too late or not in line with anybody else. The nice part is at the district level, we control just about everything under families at the district, and it pushes down to everybody else. So that's something we're definitely excited for, to, again, keep everything in line across the district. So we're live. We've been receiving some feedback, and as I said, it's always growing and always changing. So any questions?
No questions, but just like a huge kudos to you and Judy, everyone who gave content. In my other worlds, I have been through change like this, and it is huge, and it is many, many hours. I appreciate the work that went into it, and I think anything like this with a web page, you have to be able to get it live to really test it. And so I also applaud you for making that access easy for people to do, as well as using data to drive where you started from. So just really good job.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Go ahead, Mrs. Mooring.
So much a question either, but the vividness of the photography, and it just makes it so real. I mean, you feel like you're in the room next to those people, right? The quality and the pleasing graphics, I think, are really well done. Good job.
I said this to you earlier, Eric, but the aesthetics of it are very, at least, I mean, I haven't had a chance to go through a lot of the content, but the aesthetics are really nice. And I guess speaking of pictures, I really appreciate that I know that staff may not enjoy having their pictures on here, but that honestly, like as a parent, I always had no idea who I was talking to, especially at central office. So thank you to staff for allowing the pictures of yourselves to be on there. I think that that really does help people and helps humanize who people are interacting with. So thank you to everybody for being open to doing that. I know it maybe feels like a yearbook or something like that, but but it's not. It is really nice to see those pictures on there.
It looks great. I think that the only question I have is there training like at the building level as far as what they're going to have to update? Because I know when we were all running for board and we were trying to figure out who the PTA presidents were and trying to find all of that information, and I would say, well, I looked here, and they're like, really? You found that information there? So I think the cohesiveness is going to be nice for like everybody, but I just wondered as far as like training and things like that, what you're doing at the building level.
Sure, great question. So the first step was getting Judy and I trained. And so now that we are afloat with this new site, that's sort of the next phase. We worked with all of our buildings and secretaries, administrators to get the content they needed up there in terms of school supply lists, PTO presidents. We've certainly been working on that too. But that is our next phase, is working with secretaries to start. We had a meeting with them earlier this week to sort of preview this with them before it went live, and also to talk to them about, hey, we will be working on this with you. And so there will be trainings probably in the next month or two to get them on board, but certainly not just letting them at it. There are certain things on each building site that are either maintained at the district level or identical between buildings, and so there will sort of be parameters to keep that consistency, but also give them the flexibility to update. We don't need school supply lists posted in November, and so give them that flexibility of, here's the newest news item for our building, and be able to post that. So that's definitely sort of the next thing once we get through the feedback from just launching it, to get our buildings on board with that. Thank you.
Eric? It'll be fun to spend some time looking around at the content. I like that I said thank you and sent you on your way, but the last thing that I was going to say is I like that box pops up to give feedback throughout.
If anybody does find that annoying, with every page, there is a do not show again at the bottom.
Yeah.
So if you have no feedback and you don't want to see that message, because I've run into that too, I'm
Sure.
like, please just go away. I don't want to give feedback to myself.
Yeah.
There is a way to make that not show up anymore.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Starkey. Next, we are going to move into curriculum with Ms. Holloman.
We are, yes. I was going to say that. Good evening, President Pickle Antonio on board. We are actually going to tag team the presentation a little, well, the updates this evening. So I'm going to kick it off to Mrs. Elliott to start, and we'll just kind of go back and forth.
Great. So we're going to start by talking about new staff orientation. We have had several welcome back meetings and onboarding meetings with our classified staff thus far. And so next week we're gearing up to bring in our certified staff. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on Thursday for special education staff only, we will welcome about 63 participants. New staff orientation is a great opportunity for us to welcome our new staff in, to bring them up to speed on the tools and resources and processes that they'll need to kick off a great school year. It definitely requires a lot of coordination. We bring in all of our district leaders and experts, and they'll learn about our district vision, mission, beliefs, our equity plan, all the tech tools that will be helpful to them, as well as hear from our mental health specialist and about the services and programming we have, and spend a lot of time with the curriculum team digging into curricular resources and things to get them started. So I'm going to pass it to Tia. She should talk a little bit about that time spent with getting our teachers ready for the classroom.
So yes, so the curriculum department will be there for both of the days, working with the teachers to help, one, introduce them to the different resources that we have, and we kind of gear it around the supports that we have available for staff and kind of just go through a scope and sequence of that. So we talk about like our PLC meetings and how those look and support the work that they do, the actual instructional tools, the professional development that we offer, and we spend some time allowing them to kind of dive a little bit deeper into those things. During the afternoon of the second day is when they have an opportunity to really start to explore some of the instructional resources that we have available. And so the way that we've done it the last few years, which seems to have worked as an introduction, and we do have to remind them often that this is just an introduction because it's a lot of information coming at them at one time, but we divide them into the levels by content, and then we also have like a fast links document that has a ton of our resources linked on there, and so they can kind of choose their own adventure, but then also have some opportunities to kind of attend sessions, if you will, with the curriculum coordinators to kind of to dive deeper into the resources, ask questions, and really start to get their minds around what they have available for them for when they're in the classroom.
The next thing we're going to talk about is our alternative school. So just a brief update on that. We're gearing up for the relaunch of our alternative school program. As you know, we've had GCS in the district for several years, and this new program will absorb that programming and kind of expand on it. This program, as shared previously, will support students that have shown a need for a smaller environment, a more personalized experience, some more flexibility and differentiation, very individualized academic and social emotional plans. We have been so fortunate to partner with Mifflin Township, and we'll be subleasing one of their spaces on Rocky Fork Boulevard. They're still working through the renovation process, so to kick the year off, we'll have the program starting here at Clark Hall, and then once that location is ready, we'll transition to the new space, which we're really excited about. We have some great programming that's in place, and Tia is going to talk a little bit about that curricular path and support for students in that program.
So as Mrs. Elliott had mentioned, we were looking at a way to best personalize and offer more of an individualized approach from the instruction side for students. And so we've had Apex for a long time that kind of supported our credit recovery. It was a digital platform that we used for courses, and it kind of served us in that avenue. But when we were thinking about providing instruction and curriculum to the students in the Claw Academy, we wanted to explore other options that were out there. And so we actually settled on a digital platform called Innovato EDU, and it's actually based out of the Fairfield County ESC, created and developed by Ohio educators, definitely aligned to the Ohio standards. What we really liked about it, though, it was more local in terms of the development, and being developed by actual Ohio teachers means that we know that the content is more aligned to the work and the kind of the instructional resources that we had in place and what we would see in the classroom. So we decided to make a shift and use Innovato across the board, because the other thing that we thought about is it is likely that the students who would be tapped for the alternative school would also be a part of some credit recovery options, and we didn't want to have them operating in two different systems. So we decided to go full scope with Innovato. Again, still an online platform, but it will be supported by content teachers daily that will, the teachers that we use for GCS will then shift into the alternative school. And so they will be there on a daily basis to be able to support the students through their learning, through small groups, through individual support, and some whole class teaching as needed. But the way that the courses are set up, they're semesterized courses, So like an Algebra 1 course has an Algebra 1A and an Algebra 1B. And again, that allows us some flexibility depending on when a student comes into the alternative school, that they don't have to start all over. But let's say they got through the first semester and we noticed a change was needed for the second semester, well, they can tap into the second half of that course and still finish out their full credit. And so I'm excited about that. As I mentioned again, because it is an online platform, it does allow some of that self-paced work for the students, but the teachers have their eyes on it every day and will be able to support them do that.
And I'll add, the program will be designed to serve up to 120 students, 60 students in both the AM session and the PM session. We're starting the year with lower numbers. We're at 42 right now. That will continue to grow as we work with families. Even it grows daily now, and then as we get into the school year and that need is identified.
So then the only other thing that I have to report on, which is just me, is that I worked actually this summer with the tech department to be able to send out our state reports, the scores, digitally. And so once we kind of got through all of the technology speak that needed to take place, we were able to get those pushed out actually last Friday is when the reports started to go out. First round, we were able to get all the reports out, but then working with the tech team to see where we can clean up some of the script that helps us to be able to get the information out a little bit sooner and a little bit more succinct. But overall, I think in the feedback that I received from some of the families that got the reports, they were very excited to get them digitally, saved on postage and those kinds of things. So very excited to move forward in that, being able to get reports out digitally now for families. That's all I have. Yep, I'm here. I was about to, you saw that, but then I remembered.
Does anybody have, I know I have a question, but does anybody else have questions? Go ahead, Mr. Manley.
Thanks. As far as the alternative school, I was wondering, first, you said they're going to transition from Clark to over by the fire department, and I was wondering, do you know ballpark about the timing?
I'm going to kick that one back over to
And,
Mrs. Elliott.
Okay, there's part two.
So we, right now, they're going through a bidding process and then expecting about 60 days for the work. So right now, we're targeting October, November-ish, but definitely by the semester.
And then also, what is the ratio of teachers? I'm assuming because online learning is kind of hard for some students, I'm assuming that they've kind of been screened or whatever, that's going to be compatible, but if not, there's plan B or something in that regard, but the teacher ratio for the students is my question too. Thank you.
So right now, we have 4 certified staff members, 1 for each of the main content areas that will be starting the school year. And then as that number increases, we'll be looking at additional support related to alternative instructors to help with small group instruction, but constantly evaluating, is the programming being successful for students, who needs to move in, who might be ready to transition back in an ongoing manner.
And I would just add to that, as you had mentioned, Mr. Manley, that we understand that sometimes online, the online approach might be a little bit challenging. So again, that's another reason why it was important to make sure that we did have the certified teachers that would be there every day along the way with the students to be able to help guide them do that.
Sounds exciting. I think it's great to have the option. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? I don't remember if I heard the name Claw Academy before, but I think that's wonderful. I mean, I love that. I don't remember what was it called?
GCS.
Is
So
that
prior to
before that, was it?
before that, it was, we've gone through the iteration of, we just had the alternative school.
Okay.
And then when GCS, it was the Gahanna Community School.
Uh-huh.
And then when we shifted away from the grant, it became Gahanna's Commitment to Success, because the
Okay.
letters people became accustomed to. And so now, then this is just that next iteration of that.
And so Claw Academy will encompass, you said, all of the students who are currently in GCS plus some additional students? Okay. Then the last question that I have, I think, is, can you spell the name of the curriculum platform? Was it Innovato?
Innovato, yes. And it is INNEV capital A-T-O, EDU.
Capital V?
No, capital A. So
Capital A.
ENNEV capital A-T-O.
Got it.
If I could add, Lions Claw Academy. Claw stands for Commitment to Learning, Achievement, and Well-Being.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. Let me just make sure I didn't have any other questions. Oh, the last question that I have. So where in Clark Hall will they be?
Yes, so in 223, 225, 323.
Okay. And there's enough space for the number of students that we currently
this time.
have
Yes.
enrolled?
At this time.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to special education. Mrs. Wigging.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the new school year. We're ready. So I just wanted to share some highlights from our summer work that actually started in spring, and we're continuing through the summer. So this summer, we were able to provide 40 students with 47 credits through credit recovery in the Department of Special Education. We had a total of 57 we were targeting for, and we were able to achieve 47. Those students were identified as students who were right on the cusp of earning the credit and just didn't quite make it, so we were able to continue in the summer to allow them to earn the credits towards graduation. This summer, we also offered 48 students extended school year services, preschool through grade 8, and our attendance is still being finalized. Our last day was Thursday, but the attendance rate, according to our person who was overseeing it, was significantly higher than previous years, which is great news. In the spring, we had planned on opening low incidence programming at Royal Manor and Chapel Field, and those teachers in the spring helped us to identify resources we might need to be successful. And I have seen firsthand all of the different materials Lynette has brought into our office and inventoried and has gotten back out to the building. So we're excited to start an ELSS program at Royal Manor in Chapel Field this year, which will be new. We're also starting a new program at Goshen Lane Preschool and a new behavioral support services program at Middle School West. So our staff are working hard to prep students, do transition meetings, get our teachers and staff ready and our administration ready to start those new programs in the fall. We've had 10 staff fully engaged for 4 days this week in Orton Gillingham training, and we're excited because this is our 10th summer offering Orton Gillingham training. So it's an anniversary year, and after this summer we'll have 6 additional days and 100 practicum hours for those staff to complete their level 1 training under an OG certification. And then finally, another large project we've completed this summer is we are in process of being a provider for the Opportunities for High-Ends with Disabilities Pre-Employment Transition Services Program. And we had 4 staff this summer engage in building curriculum following the ODD and ODE guidelines. We are going to be a provider under the Ohioans with Disabilities program and be able to build back to receive services and resources and funds for services, honestly, that are already a part of our program. We're just refining, making it stronger, more robust through their structure. So we'll be able to, as a provider, provide billable services for pre-employment services, including job exploration, work-based learning, counseling on post-secondary opportunities, workplace readiness training, and instruction on self-advocacy for students with disabilities. And finally, I will provide to you next month an update on our Help Me Grow evaluations. They're still being done this week. We have had Help Me Grow evaluations, screenings, eligibility meetings, and IEP meetings all summer long for our soon-to-be 3-year-olds that will be turning 3 either this summer or before November 1st. And so I'll have that information for you next month, but that's still happening as we speak. That's our summer update.
Wigging.
Mhm.
Anybody have any questions? Did you have something, Mr. Mealy? Go ahead.
Just a quick comment. That's awesome about the employment readiness. I could feel your pride, and I'm not surprised with the growth and the expansion of the opportunities that you and our program are providing for the families and students. Good job. That's great.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Human Resources. Mrs. Reed.
Good evening, President Pickle Antonio, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. It's good to see you all again. I'm sure you cannot guess what I'm going to talk about. I'm actually going to start with a quick update on UKG, and then of course I'll talk a little bit about staffing. But we're excited to have started our UKG implementation. As you know, that's our new HR management system. So our team has been working hard to get this kicked off. Actually got started a little bit later than what we were thinking, just based on the timeline that UKG had given us. So Scott and I actually did our first kickoff call with the company on June 29th. That was followed by a kickoff meeting with our entire team, all of the members of both HR and the Treasurer's Office that will be involved in the implementation on July 19th, where we went over timelines and processes and kind of what to expect throughout the project. We're currently in what they call the discovery phase of the project. So right now, the two teams have some work to do. The work is kind of bringing together all of the information that we're going to need to add to the system and tell the company how to design the system for us. So they recommend that we do some trainings while we're completing that discovery phase so that we understand how the program works so that we can get the right information into it. So our teams currently are completing that training. HR has about 14 and a half hours of training that we have to complete along with the discovery documents. The discovery documents for HR are about 18 pages long, so lots of information that we're adding to that. Payroll has about 12 and a half hours of training, and then they have about 19 pages of discovery that they're going through. So it's really interesting to get in there and see how the system could work and help us. in the future. Following the discovery phase, we'll have a call where we go over the documents that we've collected for the company and talk about how we're going to be using the information, get any questions answered that we might have, and have some follow-up. We'll probably have additional information that we have to gather after that discovery call. That part will then be followed by, of course, more training while they're designing our system. And then we'll come back together and we will test and start to certify the system before we go live. We are targeting probably 2 different go-live dates for the different systems. HR is going to come together a little bit more quickly than the time piece. That's a little bit more intense in terms of collecting and setting up the system. So we're targeting right now a projected go-live for HR in October. Go live does not necessarily mean that it's something we'll be sending out district-wide. It means that our teams will have the live system to be working in, and then we'll make a decision about when we're ready to send that out to all of our employees. We're looking at likely a go live for payroll in November, December. They have to do some additional testing, a couple of test runs with payroll before we actually get to get that timesheet system up and running. So we're excited that it started. We're a little bit behind on the timeline we were hoping for, but we feel it's better to get it right and make sure that we do it the right way and have a system that's set up for our needs. So we're still excited and looking forward to some more updates, hopefully to share with you the system in the near future. Again, my other part of my report tonight is staffing. So I was looking back at some dates. We posted our first positions on January 24th for our certificated staff members, and not one single day have we not had a position that we have been working on since January 24th. So it's been a busy 7 months. We have had, for certificated, a total of 110 openings. So that's a little bit different than the number that Jill just shared. Jill shared the number of new staff members that we've hired. Openings could include transfers or internal applicants that were selected for positions, which then, of course, leads to another opening. So total of 110 openings. Currently, we have 1 preschool intervention specialist opening, 1 kindergarten opening at Goshen Lane, and a math opening at the high school. So we're getting pretty close with certificated to being staffed. With classified, we've had a total of 70 openings. Currently, we have 2 custodial openings at Middle School South and Royal Manor. We have 4 aide openings at Middle School West, Middle School East, the preschool, and then 1 floater position. We have 2 openings for cooks. Those are at the high school in Blacklick. We have 4 bus driver positions that are open, which is a little bit misleading. We did bidding for routes today for our bus drivers. So now we have a pool of substitutes and floaters that will then be able to apply for those 4 openings. So Krista has let us know today that we are ready to go with bus drivers. We have enough to get started with the school year, which is wonderful. And we got to meet with them just the other day and welcome them back, which was great. They seemed like a really excited and energetic bunch. So happy for them to be here. We also have a campus supervisor position that's open at the high school and 2 Smart Lab facilitator positions at the high school and High Point Elementary. And then finally, I'm sorry I did not grab the total number of openings for alternative instructors, but we do have 4 that are still open. Middle School West, Chapel Field, and Jefferson, a combo position. We have Lincoln Elementary, and then a Chinese AI position that's still open. So we are happy to report that we fully anticipate being fully staffed for the start of the school year. All of our employees will be in their spots and ready to go, which was a big undertaking, and it's a big relief, and we'll be super excited when everybody's here on the 14th and we go live with them. So I hope to give you a more detailed staffing report in the coming months, but that's the overview of where we are right now, and that's all I have for today.
So much. Anybody have any questions? I'm not going to ask the question that you don't want to hear asked.
What is it? You can ask.
No. When do you have to start again?
I was putting the timeline together this week for
I know. I'm sure you were.
Yes, and reaching out to universities to get job fair
Yeah.
time set up. So, yeah, it's pretty much an ongoing process
Yeah.
now. It's good, though.
It's a lot of work. So
We've got some great people coming in. I'd love to find a way to get you, you get the bio sketches, but I'd love to find a way to get you like some additional information just about the diverse experiences of the staff members that we have coming in this year, because it's pretty incredible. So.
I mean, we would appreciate that
Yeah.
because I think as the years have gone on, the number of new staff members have increased. And so we don't really get a chance to get to know them unless we happen to run into people. So if you can think of a way to do
Yeah.
that, we would be
I
all
will work
for
on
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a question, Mrs. Horn?
Just an observation, because last year I thought about it, Mr. Sturkey, I think we announced on social media the new
We
teachers.
did, yeah.
You know, that was just a fun way to kind of see the new people and a little bit of the bios. Not saying that we have to do that, but it was good for us to see, and I think for the community just to see
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
new
we'll think of a
faces.
way to do that for
Yeah.
sure. Thank
Cool.
you.
All right, we are going to move into technology. Mr. Blackwell.
President Pickle Antonio and members of the board, today I just have some updates about some of the work the technology department has been doing this summer. It's been a very busy summer for us, and we're in the home stretch now, and we're really looking forward to everything being ready for the first day of school. The first thing I can tell you about here is the classroom prep. So the technicians have been working very hard to make sure that all the classrooms throughout the district are ready for the first day of school. This is a process that we go through every year, because after the custodians are done cleaning and waxing, we have to go and visit every room and make sure everything gets plugged back in, is cleaned off and connected, and make sure everything's working. And we have a color-coded dashboard spreadsheet that's shared out with the entire staff, so teachers can look and see what the status of their room is. They can see our notes in there so that they know that we know their computer's broken and that we'll be back, and so forth. And of course, this year, there's a lot of extra work around our various construction and other projects that are going on in the district, our renovations. And we also have our new interactive flat panels that have gone in at Goshen and Royal Manor and portions of East and High Point. This has been completed at Royal and Goshen and is just getting started at High Point. And due to construction, Middle School East will be last. Starting next week and hopefully finishing up next week as well, we'll be working alongside contractors to get those systems physically mounted and then cabled up and set up and tested out in all those rooms at East. And then on the work day on August 16th, we're offering optional trainings at all 4 of those buildings for those systems. And moving from classrooms to offices here, the offices at the 4 elementaries where we're doing our secure vestibule projects, they're starting to come together. We have a cabling company coming in next week to finish the network connections, and as soon as that's ready, we'll be right behind them to set up those secretary computers and printers and Raptor systems and everything else they need. And this year's Chromebook handout has been planned and scheduled. It'll be taking place at the high school on the 18th, the second day of school, alongside a picture day. The students will get their picture taken and they'll come see us to get their Chromebook. And it'll be happening at scheduled pickup day at the middle schools, so it'll actually take place before the first day of school at those buildings. And we had a lot of work to do with the new hires as well, of course. I counted 67 new MacBooks that we set up for new staff, which is a little bit different than the number. Oh, admins, that would make sense then. And when we issue a new staff member a MacBook, we go through about a 45-minute up to an hour and a half training, depending on how long it goes, in groups, and including one that's happening at Clark Hall tomorrow. We've gone through 6 of those sessions so far this summer. And last but not least, the broadcast studio is starting to come together. Those new blue and gold colored Macs have been installed and wired up. And the next step in there is just to get some new software configured on there. And that's all I have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Blackwell? Did you?
Of course, love that spreadsheet that you sent out with the color coding. I thought that's a great tool for everybody to be able to see at a glance, and it would have to help you overall, have to not field as many questions, hopefully.
Definitely.
So just great job. You had a lot on your plate this summer.
Dr. Deagle?
I do. Oh, you mean to ask? I was thinking with the broadcasting upgrades, Is that the solution to the issue that we had last year with the broadcasting not showing in the, remember, it was freezing or not going live? Is that the solution?
It is not. So these are the
Okay.
student workstations that the students use to produce the content that is broadcast. That
Gotcha.
problem
Okay.
had more to do with the system that is actually used to send the broadcast out to YouTube.
Oh,
And we think that problem has been fixed by having the company that manufactured that device come in and work on it, do some updates on it. And also, we made some changes to our firewall last year. And since then, we've actually replaced and upgraded the physical firewall itself. So we're hoping that all those problems have been eliminated as well. It basically had to do with the outdatedness of the piece of hardware they had to send the video, and then we were sending a stream of video out to YouTube and then pulling it back in hundreds of times for all the teachers watching it live in the buildings. So we had to make some little changes on the firewalls to be able to handle that amount of simultaneous YouTube connections.
Questions for Mr. Blackwell? Did you have something, Mrs.
I just
Elliott?
wanted to also add, he shared a lot of what his department has been doing, but he didn't also say he does a lot to support all of our departments with integration of new software, Tableau, Talking Points, Innovato, UKG, data pools, PBIS, you name it, Matt's involved in it. So thank you, Matt.
Oh. Thanks. I think that is it for our director reports tonight. We have a couple, do we have items for action? Yes. So there's one item for action under letter E, Chief Operating Officer. I don't know, Mr. Hetzel, is there anything you want to say before we get the motion on the table? You don't have to, Sure.
Wouldn't mind making a comment, just that we are buying them right now in this fiscal year, and what has changed with the cooperative purchasing program is in the past, pre-COVID, they would lock in the price for the year. So you could spec your bus out and order it. It could be now, it could be in January, whenever you felt like you knew what you needed. Well, that's subject to change. They've said that these companies can't hold their pricing for a year. So we were able to identify buses that fit our specifications, and we thought right out of the gates, it's within the same fiscal year, let's lock it in before we hit increases and delays. So that's why we're presenting them right now, but it was our intention this year to purchase those. And then we're continuing to look for other options to fund more buses in the future, so.
So this is a total of 6 buses and then 1 van, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion to approve item number E1, which is approval of the buses and van? Thanks, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any additional discussion?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
The van, is it a traditional van or a special needs
So
van?
it's a shuttle van that we will use, so it's like the other vans you'll see in our fleet. It's a commercial grade van, so it's a little more expensive, but it'll align with the others that we're using right now to shuttle students throughout the school district. They are pricey. It is. And we'll talk about this at our next board meeting, because Sue and I have been working on some other methods of student transport that are more affordable and will work for the special needs department. They're a little more affordable. But your traditional vans that we used to see, the conventional vans that would be on the road years ago, Ford, GM, they're discontinuing to make those types of vans. You see the high-roofed Sprinter vans or SUVs, because they're not making the bench seats and the rows that can seat 9. I've talked to several manufacturers through the state term process and things like that to kind of see if we had an option outside of what is a very high-priced van. However, that van serves a very, very important purpose for us to transport a small amount of kids on a regular basis throughout the day instead of taking a big bus out. But yeah, we've seen that jump too, but things have changed just a bit.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on letter F, general business of the board. Dr. Deagle, is there anything you wanted to say before I get a motion on the table?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. As you know, since April, I believe, we've been engaging in conversations with the city and Mayor Jadwin about the opportunity to perhaps use the parking lot at the Shaw Park Skate Park for our students to utilize as student parking during the school day. Initially, we received a draft MOA from the city was it on Thursday or Friday of last week? My days are running together, my apologies. And I have since gone back with some recommended revisions. And so this resolution this evening would be asking for your approval for me to just continue to engage in the conversation about that MOA, to negotiate those terms so that then I can sign that and we can begin to assign those spots to those students who are currently on a wait list.
Did you want to ask a question? Go ahead, Mrs. Coates.
Spots, well,
Yep.
approximately will that open up for students? Oh, sorry.
I guess if there's nothing else that you want to say right now, Dr. Deagle, let's get a motion on the floor and then you can re-ask your question. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Okay. Is there a motion to approve item number F1, which is a Shaw Park resolution? Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Coates. And now I think, Mrs. Coates, you can, if you wouldn't mind just re-asking the question.
No, not at all. How many more students would the Shaw Park hold?
We anticipate about 100 spots, and then also for every so many spots, you need to set aside some handicap spots. I believe there would be 4 for us there. And then we would still maintain about 10 spots for the city to have should anyone want to utilize the skate park during the day.
Follow-up question. Would that remove all students off the wait list, or would there still be some students on the wait list?
At this point, that would remove everyone from the wait list. I do want to emphasize that we have already assigned more parking permits this year than we did last year. So through some cooperative efforts with our partners at the Congregational Church, at the Lutheran Church, even before Shaw, we were able to identify more parking spaces than we have had in the past, in the near past. And so this would be wonderful to have Shaw. And the term of the MOA is through the 25-26 school year. So we can continue to have that option for our students.
That's wonderful.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to revised code 12122G1 for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Any discussion? If there is anyone out there who is watching the meeting, this is the last board action item on the agenda. When we go into executive session, we do have to come back into open session, but the only board action that we'll be taking is to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
It is 7:25 p.m. and we are going to take a short break and then go into executive session.